Dr. Tina. Oh, I see you, girl.
We see you. Okay, press record there. We're ready to go.
Hello and welcome to Anatomy of Marriage Radio. I'm your host, Melanie Studley.
What's up, my friends? My name is Seth Studley. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist, and today we're switching it up a little bit, and we are going to have one of our really good friends on, Dr. Tina Schermer-Seller. So we're going to go live with her right
now. Get your questions ready.
What's up, Tierney?
All right.
Okay.
I have butterflies.
You do?
Like legit. I have a crush
It's been a
on
long
Dr.
time
Tina.
since we...
I know.
talked.
Hi!
Yay!
Good morning!
Hi.
How are
Hi.
you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you guys? It's so good to see you.
We are
I know.
wonderful.
We are really doing good, and I probably say this every time, whether I'd see you in a class or in person or online. It is always so good to see you, and you just bring an amazing energy that is awesome, and we love you so much. So
You do.
I so have missed you guys. It's so good to see you too.
yeah.
I love what you've been doing. It's just so fun.
Well, thank you so much. For well, you're in Seattle for our listeners who don't know that. So how have you been doing with the shutdown and all this stuff? Yeah.
I'm so tired of it. I'm
Yeah.
so tired of it.
Yeah.
And I miss hugging and holding the people that I usually hug and hold. I mean, I get to with my husband, but
Yeah.
I miss my babies and, I'm just
Yeah.
tired of it.
Yeah, it's funny because our daughter Haddie turned 8 during this whole thing, and so she couldn't have a birthday. So we set up a birthday parade, and it was the weirdest thing. And you'll know about this because, like, my family of origin, we're not huggers. We are like kind of around everybody.
Yeah.
But we had this parade of all these friends that are my daughter's friends, and I wanted to hug people so bad, and I'm like, wait, I'm different now. Like, I'm a different person. Like, I was like, get out of your car, but I couldn't hug anybody. And it was the weirdest moment. I was like, oh, there it is. I'm a hugger now.
I'm a hugger.
Yeah.
And I loved it / hated it. But I'm ready for things to open up. I'm ready to sit at a restaurant and, like, talk for a long time and not just be in my house.
Yeah.
But I'm
Yeah.
so glad that you could join us today. I was telling Seth,
Yeah.
I had butterflies. Like, we've interviewed tons of people, but you are like, you have changed my life and our life in such an amazing way that I was like, I can't wait to talk to Tina.
I know. I've been looking forward to seeing you guys.
Yeah.
It's so fun always to see you.
Right.
Oh, definitely. So just do a quick intro of yourself. Tell our listeners who you are and people on live and everybody, please.
So I'm Dr. Tina Schermer-Sellers. I am a licensed marriage and family therapist, certified sex therapist, author of the book Sex, God, and the Conservative Church, Erasing Shame from Sexual Intimacy, which really looks at the impact of the abstinence-only sort of thing we had going on for the last 40 years and the impact of sexual shame on our lives and how that impacts how we do attachment and intimacy. And that really has increased over the last 40 years across the United States. So it's impacted pretty much anybody under 45. And so that book is about how that happened in the United States, how we really weren't meant to have a sex negative story, how you heal from it, and then it has touch and non-touch kind of ways of integrated sexuality and spirituality. So now I run an institute that trains therapists and physicians on human sexuality, because you don't get that in graduate school. Most people think that couples therapists get trained in sexuality, but they really don't. And so it really is about training those people on how to get that training. And I do supervision and that kind of stuff. And then I go around and teach people, clergy and just organizations on how to help parents really do sex education well, because I think we can't wait for the government to sort of rally people around sex education. So I'm really trying to help sort of teachers and other kinds of people interface around how to help parents do sex education well and get over sort of their shame so that they can do it well. Because what we know is if you can do sex education well with your kids growing up, then your kids know how to keep themselves safe and they know how to enter into sexuality in a safe way, and they end up having choosing better partners and having better sexual lives as they get older because they don't have the sexual shame.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's amazing.
That's what I'm about.
I was just reading in your book actually last night. There was like the research about when Christian kids are like not taught about sexuality at all, that they are abstinent. It was something like they avoid sex for 1 more year than the average kid. But then when they engage in sex, there's no contraceptives, no protection. And there was one other thing about it too that I just was like shocked. I thought how obvious that is, because they don't know, they aren't taught what to do, how to protect themselves, all of those things. And so it's almost like they wait a little bit longer, but the damage that is done is so much bigger. And there's this massive wave of shame following it that is brought on by what the Bible says, what church says, all of those things. And they cannot manage that. And I just thought that alone, which is 1 paragraph in your book, was like, oh my gosh, that is eye-opening.
Yeah.
You know?
Right. Yeah. And one of the things too that I think most people don't realize is that girls, I'm going to be really general here, but girls often don't know when they're being exploited, and boys often don't know when they're exploiting. And neither one of them want those experiences to happen to them. Like, boys don't want to look back and go, oh my gosh, because of what I got from the media and what I was hearing from my friends, I didn't know that I was acting in non-consensual ways when I look back on my life, and that feels terrible to me.
Yeah.
Or girls don't like to go, oh my gosh, I had these things happen to me. They were assault, and oh, that was horrible, because now they play out in my life, you know? And because no one helped me learn about consent or how to have voice or how to be respectful, I had all these experiences in my youth and in my early 20s, and it's because no one helped me.
Yeah.
You know, and really, when you provide comprehensive sex and life and relationship education, you help your kids know how to be protective of others and protect themselves.
That is really interesting. Melanie and I had a conversation yesterday, the day before, and I was just talking about how I was acculturated to sexuality, like in the South, like from culture in movies and stuff. And when I was in like 5th and 6th grade, I don't know, you know, the girls were going around like pinching guys' butts and stuff like that. And for, you know, being in 5th and 6th grade, you're like, oh my goodness, what is this? And then then I thought I had liberty to do that to other girls too. But then I was like, well, wait a minute. And I'm just thinking about this now as a grown adult man. That wasn't
We would never want our own children to
for
do
neither
that.
one of us, you know. But we really honestly didn't know. And the sex ed in 6th grade was literally the male high school wrestling gym coach who was probably in his 50s, not knowing anything about sex ed, and that's all we had. That is all we had.
That's right. Yeah, and one of the things most people don't realize is that violence didn't enter video games, music videos, and pornography until 1986.
Wow.
But now it's prevalent.
Yeah.
Now it's, you know, 60, 70, 80% of what you see and hear. And so this is what is our primary sex educator. And so heterosexual boys in particular think violence is a part of what girls want.
Right.
And that's what they're telling each other. You know, you're going to hit that. You're going to tap that. You're going to, you know, it's all violent.
Yeah.
And so they don't know that this isn't what girls want to experience. And girls think they're supposed to fake that too.
Yeah.
That that's what they want. But see, it's assault.
Yeah.
Right.
And so these are often the first, you know, 20, 30% of their experience.
Ugh.
So you said 1986, and that's very specific. What was the like seminal event or thing? Like what happened in 1986?
Well, the internet came on board. We also stopped the regulations in media. We started removing regulations in media right around that time. So there was just a confluence of things that happened in the government, in media, and in the internet. I mean, there was just a confluence of things that happened right around that time.
Okay. So that makes sense. And so this week for us is we literally stumbled upon it because we're doing a daily show now, and we thought about, hey, okay, let's make next week Sex Week. And it's not like a gratuitous like, oh, let's increase our numbers, do Sex Week. It is absolutely not that. We just stumbled upon, hey,
we were just having a conversation about it, and we thought, wait, we should do.
I heard one of your live
Yeah.
when I was driving home from Portland last week, and I'm like, we need to talk about this.
Yeah.
And it was really interesting, and we got a lot of feedback. Everybody likes to talk about sex, and not just for the reasons we think. It's because we want to be more well educated. We want to unlearn the some of the crap that we learned from family of origin, from culture, from all this stuff, and then get a new perspective. And I think one of the things that you have done throughout your career is beautifully, I mean absolutely beautifully, integrate the spiritual side of sex. And a lot of people don't think about the spiritual side of sex. We think, oh, it's just physical, and how do we get to orgasm as fast as we can, and you talk about a banquet sometimes, which is hilarious because Melanie is such a food person. In fact,
well, you're a cook.
I know, I'm a cook. And recently one of her things is like, hey, you can literally show me that you love me by always having, this is funny, I'm chuckling, always having some cooked meat in the fridge just ready to go.
Like, no joke. That
24/7. I was like, okay, sure, I can do that. And that is a love language. That is like almost foreplay. And then, of course, I think of the Seinfeld episode where they talk about
cured meats
and the sensual meats, So we're talking about a banquet. Can you just expound upon that for folks who haven't heard that before? Sex is a banquet.
Yeah, well, and this is, I think, especially true for the heterosexual couple because for thousands of years, we have used the word sex to mean what?
Oh, just intercourse.
Intercourse and
to
orgasm.
mean just intercourse.
Yeah.
So that's like Cheerios. Only Cheerios. Right? Only Cheerios. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Cheerios. You get kind of tired of Cheerios.
Yeah.
So we use the vernacular sex in heterosexual conversation, and he might be just thinking intercourse, and she's going, Cheerios, breakfast, lunch, dinner, Cheerios, breakfast, lunch, dinner, and really we have to use different language. We have to start thinking about, well, what are we really talking about here? Can we use different language? And I really love, like, Dan Savage will use the question, well, what are you into? So because there's no word sex in the gay world, right? And Esther Perel will say, what kind of sex is worth having? Which is another question about Banquet, right? So we just don't use the word sex. It's like, what do you feel like? So we're in a pandemic. What do you feel like today? Well, I feel tired, or I feel what. So let's talk about what you really feel like. What will bring connection and pleasure? So what's on your banquet today? So sometimes it is move all the way through your arousal cycle. It is, you want to go to, you want to have an orgasm. Great. Or maybe one of you does and the other one doesn't. So I always like to say, let's talk about the difference between sex drive, which is I need to move through my arousal cycle, and sexual desire or intimacy, I need to be skin to skin, I need eye to eye, heart to heart, I need you, right? And sometimes those things aren't perfectly aligned. Sometimes they are, absolutely, then great, same page. But sometimes they're not. And when we just use the word sex in the heterosexual conversation, we're kind of sometimes not on the same page, and we're not delineating that. So for the heterosexual couple, they really need to talk banquet, or they need to talk something else. Like, what are we really talking about here, Sweet Pea? What do we really need? What sounds like it's worth doing so that my heart meets your heart, my body meets your body, and at the end of this, we've had connection and pleasure. Like, our banquet has both tasted really good to us.
Yeah. Well, it makes me think, of course, of the restaurant analogy. Like, if you say, hey, Seth, I'm hungry. Well, what do you want, Mel? Food? And that's it? You just leave it at food. I'd like food. Like, no, nobody does that. They go, well, I want tacos, or I want Thai food, or I want, you know, whatever, Italian food, and they say what they want because we have a whole language around it, and no one's worried about, you want Vietnamese food?
Right.
No one says anything like that. They just go, oh, you want Vietnamese food, you know? And so I think that I love that idea of expanding, but starting with that, like, what was it? What did you say? Like, what do you feel like right now, or what, or like, what sex is worth having? Like, what do you need?
Sex is worth having. Yeah,
I love
exactly.
that. That's beautiful.
Yeah, I love that question.
Well, because I'm thinking of, I try to put myself in the listener's position, not in a like an MFT kind of all this talk position, and you know, maybe folks are saying, okay, what is the arousal cycle? What are you talking about? And you know, all these terms that we can use. So when we, from what I know about the arousal cycle, and Tina, you're the pro here, so of course, correct me, but it's like the early stages, and then okay, there's a peak, and sometimes we're not at the same place in the arousal cycle, and things might slow down and get weird. Well, no, and I think it might be awkward. Well, it shouldn't be awkward. Let's normalize this. Hey, what kind of sex do you want to have tonight? Oh, well, Melanie talks about this thing called relaxation sex, which is like really slow, kind of meditative. Like, I am chilling. I got the candles and I got the smells and everything.
That's what you want when you've got 3 crazy kids. You want relaxation
in a
sex.
pandemic, right? So, sorry, I went off course here a little bit, but tell us quickly about the arousal cycle and what we should know about that.
Yeah. So when I say arousal cycle, it's like the whole arousal cycle is like what you're like at the very beginning of being turned on, and how you move yourself if you were to think all the way through how it goes for you all the way through to orgasm and after. That would be your whole arousal cycle, right? Now, sometimes when we're intimate and we touch, we don't go all the way through our arousal cycle, okay? Now, sometimes in heterosexual relationships, we've gotten into a pattern of saying, well, if we don't go all the way through, especially for men, it was just foreplay, and it wasn't real sex unless I ejaculated.
Right.
Then it was real sex. Okay? But I'm often inviting people to say, if it's not good, in other words, if it's not connection and pleasure for one person, was it really good?
Yeah.
You know? So I invite people to say, what makes sex good for both of you? How would you define good sex? Because if it's bad for anybody, it's not good enough. It's not good enough, right? And it shouldn't be based on a behavior as much as it's based on what it feels like emotionally, as well as whatever you need physically.
Yeah.
So, because what often happens is a woman is sacrificing something, or someone, one of them is sacrificing something, and the other one is like, that was good. Right? And it shouldn't be a sacrifice. And it often shouldn't be the same meal every single time.
Right.
Yeah.
Right? Because especially if you're a couple, you're going to be together having lots of meals over lots of times. Right? And that's why it can be sometimes a little bit different, you know? And if one person's like, well, I really am feeling that drive to move through my arousal cycle, and the other person's like, I really need something kind of easy, and I don't really feel like I've got the energy to move through my arousal cycle. And so you can kind of negotiate and say, well, it could be, well, can I help you move through your arousal cycle? Or can I sit behind you while you masturbate and move through your arousal cycle, and then you move through your arousal cycle, and then you massage my body? Or do you want to jump in the shower and masturbate, move through your arousal cycle, and then we spend a half an hour really snuggling and talking or sitting in the bath together? Or you kind of co-construct something together that feels connecting and pleasurable, and it may look like something you've never done before. In other words, it's, you know, this particular banquet.
Yeah, I love that idea, because it's, well, the analogy of restaurants and food and stuff, we don't go, when we do date nights, we don't go to the same place every time and order the same chef's special or whatever it is. We talk about it. Hey, what do you feel like tonight? I don't know, blah, blah, blah. Well, let's don't go to Issaquah. Well, nobody knows what that is except for us in Washington. But we don't go to this city. We're going to go to this other city that has a great, atmosphere and food. We talk about those things.
Yeah.
So why aren't we talking about sex, connection, and pleasure, and being intimate in that way, just like we talk about a date night, like planning it out, researching how many Yelp reviews did the restaurant get, these types of things. And I'm being really serious because I think there's so many parallels here, and we don't. When I say we, I'm saying we don't have that type of conversation. And this, I promise, every time we talk to you, we're like, have this conversation and improve our lives. And I want to start having that kind of conversation like that, because we do it in all other aspects of our life,
Yeah. And I want to comment on something that you said, because you talked about the arousal cycle. But what's interesting is, even when you were saying it, I hadn't thought about, you said, yes, the arousal cycle is getting turned on all the way through orgasm and then after. And then after is an extremely powerful, tiny little sentence that I think so many people aren't understanding. After sex is still an intimate moment. And I think people, we think of it like fast food, like McDonald's. Okay, you get your burgers, you eat them, you go. Right? No, like at a fine dining restaurant, you have eaten the potatoes and the steak and the whatever shrimp scampi, and then you sit there and drink wine. After you've had your meal, you
have
sit
a cordial,
there and you
have
talk,
dinners,
right? Like we're I can't think of the word. There's a word I keep trying to think of, and like for days I can't think of it. Like we're taking this amazing thing of connection and pleasure, what sexuality is and how it can be, and we're like just shoving it down into this tiny, like 1 inch by 1 inch cube of sex that does not encompass the like meal, the wine after dinner. It doesn't encompass all of those things. And I thought that was so powerful what you said. At the end of that cycle is the being together. It's the end of that. And then that was the one thing I want to say. And then the second thing I want to say is that after meeting with you like the first time and having the conversations we've had and all of the insights that I've gotten from you, one of the things I started saying when I speak to moms specifically about sex is, I don't have bad sex. I won't. And I like, why would you? Why would I, especially with the person I adore, be like, oh yeah, let's settle for like something I don't like, or maybe you don't like. Let's settle for that. Like we wouldn't do that with a meal. We wouldn't do that with our home. We wouldn't do that with our car. So why are we doing it with the most intimate and connecting thing that we have out there? But it doesn't mean that I require Seth to make our sex great. It means I come to the table, I come to the bedroom, the wherever, with an energy, knowing I have power here. Not power in a bad, abusive way, but I have a say. I have a voice. I have a desire, whether that's for crazy sex or calm sex, whether that's for no intercourse or some, you know what I mean? Like, I want to empower women to say, and men, I will not have bad sex, because I have the ability every time to have amazing sex. And it will look different every time, you know? So thank you for all the amazing sex I've been having.
Well, and I love that, Mel. I love that you're really taking that by the head, you know, and just saying, this is what I want. And because I think so many women will do this, well, I just have to get myself in the headspace. Well, if you're doing that, if you're saying that to yourself, then you're likely already compromising. You're already trying to put yourself in his headspace. Or if he's the low desire partner, he's already trying to put himself in her headspace. And neither one of them are really sitting and co-creating connection and pleasure. Really saying, what kind of sex, what kind of connection, pleasure is really worth having for us? We're not co-creating that. It's either not enjoyable enough, it's not diverse enough, something is not connecting and pleasurable enough yet, because I'm twisting myself somehow to fit inside something else over here. And we're missing it somehow. And so you kind of need to kind of go back to the drawing board a little bit. You know, and I love what you're saying about the after, because again, we see this in gay, trans, even the kink world. There's this whole afterglow, this aftercare time that is totally punctuated there because it's a recognition that you care for each other, that is an important time, that you've just done something important together. And yet, in the straight world, we ran right by that probably 2,000 years ago. Because we only privileged in the patriarchal world the role of the man.
Yeah, that's
and
powerful.
Yet, women, we have all these wonderful hormones that just got cascaded in our body. It's such a wonderful time to say, I think God put that in us to say, wow, something powerful just happened between us.
Yeah.
Bonding, let's soak that in.
Yeah,
You know?
it's that making meaning of what is it? Shared experiences, and when couples have those shared experiences, and of course this can be sex or a baby or even something. You know, I've had a flat tire on the freeway before, and Melanie's had to come and get me, or like, my car broke down, and she came and got me, and we literally rallied together. And of course, we're lucky, and it's not a huge deal for us to have a broke down car. It just sucks. It's inconvenient. But in that time of like, oh, this sucks, let's stop everything, that's a shared experience that brought us closer together. So it can be any range of shared experiences, and especially in the afterglow, the after part of sex, is like, you just got me to a place, and I just got you to a place. Wow, that is awesome. Thank you. So there's like, our hearts are full of gratitude. Of course, we're flooded with all kind of happy dopamine chemicals and all that stuff, which helps. But it's so bonding, like we talk about pair bonding too, and it is so important. And for couples to overlook that is just, we're leaving a beautiful banquet. How about we're leaving a lot of options of desserts just on the table? Like, oh, I'm full. I'm not gonna, just forget it.
Well, and it makes me think of like if you think of the way that time we are flooded with hormones and we are feeling all of these things, and if we ignore that window of time, that very specific window of time that is not like many other things, and we blow past it and we leave and we hurry past it. It is very similar to a child wanting to like hold your hand and say I love you and hug you, and you're like, nah, I don't have time for that. Like, you probably know I love you. Go to the other room. Yeah. Like, you're taking one of the most vulnerable times that most of us don't even know about, because we don't see it in movies, we don't see it in video games, we don't learn about it in sex ed in school. The church is certainly not talking to us about it, and so we take something like an immense gift, a moment of connection, and we just kind of flop it into the trash, and we go, nah, probably doesn't even matter. And it matters so much, and that's what I think is so crazy about it, is I hadn't even thought to have this conversation until you said it like 15 minutes ago.
It's really true. It's really true. That is such a good point.
Yeah, and one of the things, so one of our watchers on Facebook said, sex ed for parents and their kids, how old should they be when we start teaching them, etc. So I wanted to ask that because you have such amazing insights on this. So just tell us all your thoughts on sex ed and how you do it.
So you start while you're pregnant. If you really are asking the question, you start while you're pregnant. If people are like, what? Well, because most of us started getting shamed the minute we found our penis or our clitoris, which was at 10 months old. Really, honestly, as soon as we could get to it with our diaper, and that person that was changing our diaper usually freaked out about that time. So we started getting shamed as an infant, so it's in our DNA. So we have to start practicing really early to get through our own shame, okay? And then it becomes easier and easier. So I say that knowing that most people are often past that point, but you start getting the books as soon as you can. And so I'm often, and on my Instagram, I have a resource button, a circle, whatever. But Robbie Harris's books, she's got a book of 4 to 7-year-olds, 7 to 10-year-olds, and 10 on up. Those books are fabulous. There's many others, but I love to start there because they do all the work for the parents, because they are fun and funny, great pictures, and they'll just do a lot of the work. There's many others to get. I'm actually in the middle of writing curriculum right now that are tear-off pages.
Awesome.
That are 2 to 4, 4 to 6, all the way up to 18.
What?
And on one side is all of the developmental steps, what the kids go through sexually, and on the back side is the shame triggers that the parents feel, and then what the parents need to do for themselves, and then what the resources are. Because I think parents need to know that as they feel these things, it's normal, it's okay, and here's what you need to tell yourself to sort of take care of the little person inside of you, sort of breathe yourself through it so that then you can do what's on this side for the child, you know? And so all of those things they're right now with an illustrator, and then they'll actually go on the website, and we're going to be practically giving them away. And then they're going to go to doctors and teachers and youth leaders and everybody so that they can just hand them out, because there's nothing like that out there. And parents need to be, just to help parents. So parents can do the work, because parents are the best educator out there.
Yeah.
Best, by far.
That makes, I'm speaking for Melanie too, that makes us both so excited because obviously we love anything that you do or have done, and for this resource to come out for kids and parents, and to be so from such a sex therapist, psychotherapy perspective, it's like, you know, because a lot of things that we learned in our family of origin, we're going to perpetuate, right, with our kids, and it's literally just passing that down, bad and good. So giving the parents resources, or asking the question, hey, what does this bring up for you? Something? Okay. It's going to be helpful for your own kid if you figure that out or do some work, or just don't do it, table that for a minute, and don't pass it down to your kid, right? So that free resource for the... Anytime you want us to promote it, we absolutely will. We'll send all the links in the world to our website and to our people, because that is so awesome.
When is it going to be done? Do you know?
So it's at an illustrator right now. So I'm hoping by the summer, late this summer, we'll have it, and then people can just get it and make copies. I don't care if people make copies of it, honestly, and then take it to their doctors, because I'm like, the doctors at that well child visit, just to give it out at well child visit, you know, to their teachers, to their youth pastors, to you know, their community leaders, whoever, you know, just start handing them out to parents and make it easy for parents to do it. One of my little tricks that I'll say to parents is, your kids are going to do what your kids are going to do, because the kids love their body, as we're supposed to, just like they love the world and they want to understand it. So as your insides freak out, because they're going to freak out, that's what shame does. It makes you go, like this, right? As your body freaks out, try your best to put on this face.
just smile.
Just smile and breathe, you know? Because if you can try not to react during that time that you're going, oh crap, just breathe and put on a non-reactive face until you can calm down and remind yourself that this is normal. Whatever it is, it's usually a normal child curiosity. You know, at 5, they're curious about other kids' bodies. At 3, 2, 3, 4, they're curious about their own bodies. You know, younger, you know, they're just like, wow, look at that. That is so cool. I have 8,000 nerve endings right there. Mom, look. You know, they're so excited about it.
Look.
That's all normal, you know. At 10, 11, 12, 13, whether the boy goes, they're really kind of curious about social interactions, and they're going to do goofy things. Just try to think back on your own life. It's all kind of normal, and you just kind of got to go, well, okay, we got to just start looking at the books more. You know, we just got to start looking at the books more. That's all.
Well, you're just talking about the developmental stages. Of course, we have 3 kids, and we have 2 older boys. One will be 13 soon, and the other one is 11, and they just have like these hilarious inside jokes.
They constantly talk
and
about
they're just
their
running
genitalia.
around, and it's cute, and it's hilarious, and it's normal too. Melanie's like, what? And I'm like, it's fine.
Well, and
it's normal.
I think because that is
Right.
like the complete opposite of the family that I grew up in, the home that I mean, we didn't ever see each other naked ever. Like, you don't wear swimsuits, you cover up, you wear jeans and hoodies basically all the time.
Right.
So I'm trying, but thankfully we know you and have learned from you. And so I have to stop myself and I have to make that like, what's going on, but I have to smile and be, it's okay. But it's so powerful. And one thing I wanted to point out, which I thought was just, it's really amazing. We had talked about this in previous episodes about, you know, sex ed, how do you start teaching your kids? And one of the things that you said about boys in particular is you said something along the lines of at around the age, I think it was 7, they stop sitting on your lap. Like boys stop being on your lap, and it's like a different thing happens, and they're supposed to be little men, and you treat them like a man and whatever. And I think it was you that said that. I could be mixing something up here. But one of the things that struck me is I made a choice with our own sons. I'm like, if they come to me and they want to snuggle or hold my hand and they're 12, I am not going to tell them no. Right? And so the other day, literally like a week ago, we were jogging at the church. I'm saying jogging, like we're exercising with our kids. My 12-year-old son asked to hold my hand while we're jogging, which that's awkward. But I was like, of course I'm going to hold your hand. So think about what Mariner is, our 12-year-old. Mariner is going to have such a more freeing experience of simply just touching, loving touch, because I did not deny him that.
Right.
I didn't tell him, boys don't do that, Mariner, don't do that. You're too old. You're too this. It's not good. It's that and that. And it just really struck me. And now that the kids aren't in school because of COVID-19, they're home. There is something so shocking to me about how middle school, and just in itself, is pushing our kids to grow up way faster than they need to be growing up. Like right now, our 12-year-old and our 11-year-old boys will sit and make mud pies. They will sit and pretend they're on a battleship. No one, if they saw a middle schooler, would ever think that they would be doing that. They're supposed to be trying to be cool. They're supposed to be flirting with girls. But in their heart of hearts, when they aren't in that social structure, they play with Legos. They do goofy stuff.
They just want to be themselves without the pressure of... That's funny because they even want to hold my hand too, you know. So I'm like, and I just read a great book by John Eldridge, Wild at Heart, you know, and it has a more Christian bent on it. But it is really important for. He talks about how men heal, and men can heal from the wisdom of other men, and it's just like this biological thing that really clicked with me. I read it 4 times, and I am hell bent on providing that for my sons. Of course, different things for our daughter, but like, if they want to hold a hand, I'm going to teach and guide and just walk beside as much as I can, because family of origin, which obviously we talk about all the time, I didn't have so much of that, and I'm you know, in a constant process of unlearning that and rebuilding something on a much stronger foundation, so I can give that to my kids, which is the best gift that I could ever give. I believe that is absolutely the best gift.
I agree, absolutely. I think boys, just like girls, they need so much intimacy. They need so much permission for intimacy. And that thing you're quoting, Mel, is that boys are taken off laps at 6, typically. And the next time they experience touch, intimacy, is through sex. And that's why men so often sexualize intimacy. They need intimacy, just like women need intimacy, but they conflate intimacy and sexuality because it got conflated for them. But you let boys do what boys will naturally do, and they will stay seeking intimacy, not sex necessarily, because the culture is what does that. So you're seeing what naturally will happen when boys are let to be boys. They're let to be people. Right?
That's powerful.
And they will seek intimacy. And they'll do it with you, Seth, too. It's what we naturally want to do. And so it's so great that you guys are noticing this and you're cultivating it, because it is their heart. It's absolutely their heart. One of the books I want to say you want to read now that just came out is Peggy Ornstein's new book, Boys and Sex. It is so important to read. You know, she wrote Girls and Sex, which is something I always talk about, but Boys and Sex just came out about 2 months ago. I just finished it this week, and it is so good because it tells you now the effect of media on boys. And she interviewed over 100 boys for this book, and it is so stirring how we need to really protect our boys and help them be fully who they're meant to be.
Yeah.
I think that whole, and we also talk about this on the show, and the research also bears this out, but now I'm not so sure if all that research has been skewed based on what you exactly said. And the research, what I'm talking about is, I feel connected to Melanie, intimately connected, like during sex and then after. You know what I'm saying? Like, I feel that connection with that, and Melanie feels the connection way before that. So it's now it's making me think, oh, the phenomenon of boys getting taken off of laps, that's why I think that way, right?
Yeah.
So what advice would you have, because the research bears this out, so what advice would you have as a sex therapist to the men who feel connection that way, only through sex and stuff, to maybe ramp that back a little bit and say, hey, explore these ways to feel intimately connected to your partner without sex. And then if that happens, sure, that's great, but what are some precursors to that?
Well, it's like, Seth, you went through our retreat, and then men have these powerful experiences when they make love to their wife while they keep their pants on. So they have these experiences where they learn to love their wife by loving her, by touching her body and listening to her, doing these powerful touch, giver-receiver exercises.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have anything to do with their body at all. And they're weeping, she's weeping, right? And they're like, wait a minute. I didn't move through my arousal cycle. I was just attending to her. And that was so incredibly powerful for me. I've never had any experience like that in my life. But that was one of the most intimate, powerful sexual experiences of my life. I don't know where to put that.
Right.
I don't know where to put that in my head, in my heart, anywhere. Right?
Because there's not a compartment for it. Like, I didn't even know that there was a space for that. What? Where do I even put this thing that I've never seen or even heard about before?
Right, exactly. And the other day you said in one of your live Instagram things, you said, Melanie, you've got all these people that you work with. You've got all these things that you do. I don't have anything. But you said that in the context of, we're not having enough sex. So it's an example of the conflation. You're missing intimacy in your heart, but your channel is that way. What I've learned from men is they are lonely, and they know how to get it through that channel, but there are so many other ways to get it too. So what I'll often encourage is, you might want to try having more experiences where you move through your arousal cycle, whether that's through masturbation or something, and then come to Melanie already satiated, already feeling like, I don't have to, have an orgasm, but I want to be all up in Melanie. I want to be all up in her.
Right.
I want to be all up in her body. And she doesn't feel like she has to do anything for you, but she knows she can be all up in you.
Yeah, that's a really cool way to
And then see what happens to your heart. See what happens to your sense of intimacy, of satiation emotionally, and see if that doesn't, teach you something about what your heart is needing, what your intimacy is needing, and whether you feel seen, known, loved, and accepted in that place where you feel empty. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That Melanie is getting when she goes walking with her friends, and you're feeling a little left out.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. It makes me think of our kids, our boys especially, and our daughter does this too. She's much younger, but the boys hold my hand all the time. They will put their arm around my back. They will sit and touch my leg. They are constantly touching me in a way that is just, I love you, I'm here, which I do to them. I touch them all the time. I kiss them constantly. And what's interesting is that as you're saying this, all I can think of is, to me, that is my natural state of being with someone else. And not my family of origin, someone else, but my own children, my husband. I would love to touch Seth all the time, but in my experience, it is, oh, she's touching me, sex. Oh, she's touching me, sex. Oh, she's touched me, I should grab her butt. when it's like, no, just interweave your fingers into mine. That is a really amazing feeling too. And so it's just interesting as we're talking about it, watching our sons develop this really sort of more complex and varied version of what intimacy looks like, that has no sexuality twisted in it at all. And then seeing how I feel like you're stuck. You're almost like in an invisible glass box. Like if it's not sex, you don't know how to do it, so you just don't. And then, but then when you come to me, that expectation is, well, sex. It isn't, I'm touching you because I love you. I'm just going to sit here and touch your hair. It's, I'm sitting here and touching your hair because I want to have sex. Right. And I'm not mad at you for that or anything, but...
well, like Tina was saying, that's why I asked about, okay, like literally, what is an intervention or some exercise that I can practice for that to get out of that? Because it literally is, I think, guys, we're leaving a lot on the table, right? Yeah. It's there. Yeah. And it's almost like we don't even, we know there's a table there, we know there's stuff on it, but it's invisible. We just feel the tension of not knowing. And that's you know, like, think about if you want to do something really bad, you're like, oh, I don't know. It's kind of like our kids sometimes. They're like, Mom, I'm bored. Oh, what do you want to do? Well, I don't know. So they're just like in this
tension.
Yeah, in this weird spot of like, I don't know, but I know I don't want to do this. So, you know, somebody help me, kind of thing. Yeah. Which is really funny. And I think so many men do feel that way, and of course women do too, I'm sure. But from the male perspective, it's like, yeah, that's a real thing. Yeah.
I want to honor your time. I'm not sure how long we were intending on talking or anything. Are you good still?
I'm in COVID.
Oh, yeah.
That was funny. But I did want to ask about all that you have going on with everything from your retreats. Are those still happening? I know you have your website, looks amazing. Whoever did your website and your photographs I want their number. And then also like I know you took over the 4D wheel, Gina Ogden stuff. So I'd love, just tell us all the things that you have going on, where people can participate in them. And I want to talk about if you're going to Mexico again, because I might want to join you. But so anyway, go ahead.
Okay. So Dr. Tina, so Instagram, you guys can see. So Tina Shermer Sellers is my website. And that just got redone. And so, and then that's sort of where my speaking and supervision and, I don't know, that stuff kind of goes on there. And a lot of the sex ed stuff goes there. And I'm doing more webinars and courses and stuff for the public, just trying to help people out. Some stuff on sexual shame, that's gonna all get uploaded there. And then, Northwest Institute on Intimacy is stuff really for clinicians and doctors and therapists. And then people can go there to find therapists who are trained in individual, couple, family, sex therapy, and spiritual intimacy. Only about 5% of therapists in the country are trained that much. And so people can list themselves there. And then we do all of our courses and stuff are there. And then the retreats are listed there. And so there's retreats, the intimacy retreats for heterosexual couples right now. And that's not because we don't love all the others, we do. But heterosexual couples are the couples having the least amount of sex and the worst amount of sex. And so that's where we started our focus. And so we have retreats going on in Colorado and Seattle about once a year. And they do fill up. So I think the next Seattle one is going to be February of 21. And then there's an October one in Colorado. And those are, I think they're good. They're really great.
Hold on, your daughter said, I have the coolest mom.
I know, yeah, your daughter's on Instagram saying, I have the coolest mom. It is adorable.
And then, what else?
The 4D wheel, are you doing that
stuff? So the 4D wheel, and the Northwest Institute website right now is a mess because we're in the middle of it all being redone, and it was kind of crashing, and we just didn't bother to really updo it. So the new one's coming up probably in another month or two. And then the 4D wheel is Gina Ogden's work, and it's all that website's getting redone right now too, and I'm really excited about it. And that is her work is just phenomenal, and it's a particular model that shows the integration of the body, mind, heart, and spirit, and how that work really is an integration of healing. And so we'll have more. We train therapists in her work, and I don't know if we'll be going back to Mexico, but we will be doing more retreats and workshops around her work.
Yeah.
And other people are doing them around the country. So that will keep evolving, and we will have lots of courses on her work on that website as well.
So do you just want to go to Mexico with me then? Like just you and I go? Because I'm game.
We'll do that.
Yeah. So the retreat that Dr. Tina is talking about is an intimacy retreat that Melanie and I participated in, I think in about 3 or 4 years ago, and it was unbelievable. It was
mind-blowing.
A multi-day intensive group therapy, and it was just, and you guys told us this too, you and some of the other therapists there. You were like, yeah, your friends are going to ask about it, and you're going to have a really hard time explaining it. And we still have a hard time explaining it, other than it is so awesome, and you don't know what you don't know, and you don't know what you don't know you don't know. And we learned a couple of things. Well, we learned more than a couple of things about ourselves, about sexuality, about spirituality, and the integration of all that. And it was so awesome. So you guys definitely go to is it Dr. Tina Shameless Sex? I know that's your handle on Instagram, but your other website is Tina Shermer Sellers.
Yeah, the retreats are on NWIOI.com.
Which
so
is
Northwest Institute on Intimacy.com. So NWIOI.com.
And we'll share all the links out too after we get the episode published and everything. But yeah, that to me was like, when we arrived, I had no idea what to expect, which was so funny. Seth's like, I signed us up for an intimacy retreat. I'm like, I whatever. We're flying to Denver. I don't know what's going on. And I had no clue what to expect. And I was absolutely blown away. Like everything about it was amazing and just life-changing, really life-giving, life-changing. And it transformed how we parent. Honestly, that was one of the coolest takeaways that I wasn't expecting was this is changing how I see so many things that I have stereotyped in my mind that men or boys should or shouldn't do. And how, I don't know, it was just like a real life walking, breathing, moving journey, which is, that doesn't do it any justice, but I tried.
People are like, what are you talking about? So,
I wish so much, the stuff that is in the retreat really is the stuff I wish and believe that we should be raising people to understand about how you do intimacy and long-term relationship well and successfully, and we just don't make it a part of our lives and how we raise people. But it's the information you really need to know to do long-term relationship well. And we don't teach it. And if we did, people would be able to enjoy their relationships and do them in a thriving way, I think.
Can I ask you one thing? So I remember at the retreat, there was, I think inside of the workbook, it asked you to write down your thoughts about the word intimacy. And I remember being like, oh, doesn't intimacy just mean like intimate apparel? Like it's sex, right? Like intimacy is sex. And I literally sat there like a ding-a-ling going, what is intimacy? Like, I've really never thought about this. So would you mind speaking on the importance of just understanding intimacy? Because there's so often sex and intimacy is clumped into one word and so, or one thing, it's one heading. But I really think we're not doing intimacy enough justice. So we're not learning what it is. We don't know the importance of it. And it is just clumped together with sex. So what are your thoughts on that, I guess?
Well, I love that question, and I actually have an entire chapter in my book on the anatomy of intimacy.
Ooh.
Like really what it is. What is intimacy? And so often when people just even have sex, they're just doing it at the body level, just the body coming together. But when I talk about the anatomy of intimacy, it can be the body, it can be then sensuality, engaging all of our senses. It then can be desire, which is the heat, the desire. I believe I'm desirable, and I believe you're desirable, and we can get that heat going. And then the heart, engaging and opening the heart. So I let you into me, and I come into you. We open our heart. I'm not like, it's a tit for tat, or I put a wall up. It's like we know when we have an open heart or a closed heart, right?
Yeah.
So opening the heart. And the next one is trust. And trust is built or broken in 3 different areas. Like, I do what I say I'm going to do. You do what you say you're going to do. If we don't, we busted our trust, right? Or speaking our truth is another
You pause for
place we do. Like, do I tell you what you want to hear, or do I really do it? And that's another place. Or keeping our vows, like our promises. We break it anywhere in there, and we've broken trust.
Right.
So that's another place, where we do intimacy. And then the next one is beauty. Like, do I see your beauty, like your true beauty? Like, do I open myself to that? That's really existential.
Yeah.
Like, deep beauty. Like, you can be 90 and I can think you are beautiful,
Yes,
right? Like,
yeah.
I open myself to that. And then, only then do I get to ecstasy. Like, the spirituality, like the God in here, right? All of those levels are part of intimacy. And most people are just down here at the body.
Yeah. Wow.
They're just here. So all of those things are potentials of intimacy. And I spend a whole chapter on that in the book.
That is awesome.
And that's in the retreat. That's in
Yeah.
your workbook.
Yeah, and it's in there. And I remember this, I don't know if you coined it, but intimacy. Into me you see, right? And that goes, that's a very two-way streets with a big circle around it, I would like to think. And that, I just love the spiritual part that you talk about, and this is more than just our bodies. It is everything. And if we can open ourselves up to that, oh boy, boy, that's all I can say.
Yeah.
Or oh girl, I don't know.
You hear, oh God.
Right.
That's funny.
That is perfect, actually. It's
So we want to be respectful of your time. Tina, I genuinely want to say thank you for just being who you are. Thank you for the gifts that you bring into this world, and the braveness that you have, and the true emotion that you have speaking about these things. Like, we see it shines through, and we love you for it, and we thank you so much for it.
Love you guys too. So good to see you.
You
Yeah,
too.
and we'll link all the stuff. Yeah, we'll link all the stuff. And you guys go follow Dr. Tina on Instagram and everything else she does. You can thank us later, I promise you. So thank you.
Thank you
so
again.
much.
Thank you guys.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Oh.
Okay, guys.
Okay.
I hope that
Best day
conversation knocked your socks off. Like I said, and Mel, Tina is so awesome, and I've told her this before, that whenever we see her, she just brings a light into the room, and I want to be like that.
Yeah.
Like, to bring that energy, that vibe, that life-giving. Tina is a life giver. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I honestly strive in whatever I do, if it's leadership, counseling, podcast, anything, raking the leaves, bring life, just like Tina does.
You know what's funny is that I often think, because I've gone to several things with Tina, like in Denver, and you haven't been there.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I've spent more personal time with Tina than you have,
Nah.
although she was your professor.
Yeah.
But that's the type. Tina is literally the person I want to be like. Like, I want to have that much clarity, kindness, love, compassion, joy, light-giving energy, educational prowess and beauty and I don't know, glory.
Well, you know what? How about this? You do have that.
I'm trying.
Right? It's not if we can just get
I need to foster it.
If you foster
That's a
it
great
and,
way
you,
to
and you
say it.
step into it and you live it, because just like we talk about on the podcast, it's not like we're gonna have a good marriage. If we can just have a good marriage, no, we have a good marriage. It's that transition from
draw it out.
I want to, into I am.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's great.
And we have to believe that before we can put it out there.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. So we got a late start this morning, so we're reversing. Let's do our prayer, gratitude, and intentions right now.
All right.
And guys, thank you so much for joining us today. It's just been an awesome episode. Don't worry about it. Just focus.
Okay.
It's been an awesome episode, and we love it so much. But we're going to do our prayer. We do prayer every single day. And we do our gratitude. We share something about our spouse that we are thankful for that either happened today or yesterday or recently. Very specific thing. And then we do our intention, which is based off of our behaviors that we want to change, sort of in the direction that we want to live our lives.
Right.
So we encourage you guys to do this together. So
All right. Thank you, God, for the blessings that you have given us. Thank you for our house and the rain and our kids and the wonderful plants that are growing outside and life happening. Thank you for Dr. Tina being on the show this morning. I pray that this podcast and this content is helpful to people, and I also pray that it is helpful to us in our relationship. Amen.
Amen. I feel rejuvenated.
I know.
Oh, your thing just messed up.
Darn. Well, just share the story.
Oh, goodness. Do another one, I
probably
guess.
because we went so long.
I know we went so long.
But... So, okay, we'll continue the...
don't faff with it.
Okay.
So what about your gratitude?
I'm thankful that you like to have these conversations like this with people like Dr. Tina, and literally we can walk on the same path in that and talk about these things and not be weird and not be shy and not be like, oh, this is too, whatever. Yeah. You go there. Yeah. And I'm very thankful for it. So
I am thankful that you do the same thing too, but I'm not gonna steal yours. A more specific thing, I think. Last night you cooked dinner for the kids, and you were really attuned to me last night, like in just a general sense, because I felt weird yesterday.
Oh, right.
I don't know why. I just felt I had a really hard day with the kids, and so, or not the kids, one of our children, our daughter is just blowing my mind lately with how hard it is to teach her, and it's very draining. It's super, super draining. I've been home for weeks. I haven't gone anywhere. And
you're doing 75 hard.
Yeah.
So I have done 75 hard, and I know that it can suck sometimes, and I could just see it. You're like,
well, and I don't feel like I don't have that. That's not my mindset around it. Like I'm happy to do it, but yesterday I just was in a weird space, and I didn't have to tell you. I didn't have to cry. I didn't have to be mean. I didn't have to whatever. You literally attuned to me as if it was like a station on a radio, and you're moving your antenna to make sure that you were catching my signals, and I really appreciated it. And you were like, you were just using really practical ways to attune to me, like, what do you want to eat? And here's like shredded cheese for you, or whatever.
So I want to say something. I want to give you a bit of feedback. Because I didn't know that I was particularly attuning to you, and you would appreciate it so much. It's important that you let me know that you appreciate it.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? Like in the moment.
Yeah.
And that would be helpful. So.
Yeah, that's good feedback. High five.
Yeah.
So what is that?
No sound. Oh.
Oh, stinking.
Well,
phones.
when you do an IG live for an hour, it probably
our phones are like, I can't live.
Makes your battery dead or something like that. So.
But anyway, so let's not worry about that right now. We'll have to just do the Instagram thing later. But what about our intentions? Sorry, people listening to the podcast. I'm not editing this out.
Okay, my intentions. Sometimes my intentions gets I don't want to say convoluted, but I am focusing on a lot of things, particularly our budget and money stuff right now, to get everything set and meet our money goals, and that directly impacts the family. So that is what I am intentional about, to serve you, to serve our family.
And you work really hard on that, and I appreciate
if that makes sense. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
like putting money here and doing that and saving up and doing Dave Ramsey stuff. So that's what I'm intentional about today, to serve you in a good way. And I got to make sure that you have cooked meat in the fridge.
Cooked meats. I do.
You do?
I don't know. I thought so.
Oh, okay.
Maybe I don't.
I don't remember.
Don't worry about it. But I love that intention. I think my intention... your feedback just now is going to give me my intention, because you said, let me know when I'm attuning to you.
In real time.
And I think that I haven't... I'm starting to like apply these ideas to our kids and the boys specifically, but I think I need to, because it's easier to apply this with kids. They have lower expectations of you. They just want to be with you and love you and talk to you, but it's just harder with you, because we have a history, and I think, well, he might think this, or what if he thinks it's dumb, or what if he whatever. So I need to get past that upper limit idea. I need to get beyond my own discomfort, which is definitely family of origin generated. I need to be able to push beyond that and to create the marriage, life, relationship, conversations that I actually love and adore. But it takes peeling back all of the layers of what I'm used to, and those layers literally stop that progress. It's like a glass onion, and you can see beyond it. But if you're too uncomfortable to break the layer that you're currently in, you're not going to get to the next one.
You can see beyond it.
Yes, you can see what's there, but there's a thing you have to bust out of.
Break the glass onion.
Break the glass onion.
That's a T-shirt.
But that's for me. My intention today is